It was a quiet night in rural Minnesota, the kind of place where the road stretched endlessly through farmland. No streetlights, no traffic, just darkness. On May 14, 2008, a 19-year-old college student named Brandon Swanson was driving home after spending the evening with friends. It should have been a simple drive, just another night on familiar country roads. But somewhere in that darkness, Brandon's car slid off the gravel road and into a ditch. He wasn't hurt. The car wasn't badly damaged. It was the kind of accident that happens all the time in rural areas. But what happened next would become one of the most haunting disappearances in modern American history. Because after the crash, Brandon called his parents for help. For the next 47 minutes, community and technical college. Friends described him as responsible, friendly, and easygoing. He had just finished his first year of college. Like many students, he was looking forward to the start of summer. School was over, final exams were finished, and that night, Brandon had spent time visiting friends in nearby towns. Nothing about the evening seemed unusual. There were no arguments, no signs of trouble, just a normal night with friends. Around midnight, Brandon decided it was time to head home. His parents lived about 30 minutes away in the town of Marshall. It was a drive he had made many times before. But sometime after leaving the town of Canby, Brandon took a wrong turn. Instead of heading toward Marshall, he ended up on unfamiliar rural roads. And in rural Minnesota, those roads can look almost identical. Long gravel stretches cutting through farmland, fields in every direction, very few landmarks, and almost no lighting. It's the kind of place where it's easy to lose your sense of direction, especially in the middle of the night. At some point during the drive, Brandon lost control of his car. The vehicle slid off the road and into a ditch. The car was stuck, but Brandon wasn't injured, so he pulled out his phone and called his parents. It was around 1:54 in the morning. He explained what had happened. He told them he had driven into a ditch, but that he was okay. His parents asked him where he was. Brandon believed he was near the small town of Lind, but there was one problem. He wasn't. He was actually miles away from where he thought he was, lost somewhere in the rural farmland. Still, his parents got into their car and began driving to find him. They told Brandon to stay on the phone. If they kept talking, they could eventually locate him. But Brandon didn't want to wait alone in the car, so he decided to start walking toward what he believed were the lights of a nearby town. And for the next 47 minutes, he stayed on the phone with his father, talking, walking, trying to figure out where he was. At times, the conversation was completely normal. They talked about the road, about the fields around him, about the direction he was walking. His father tried to guide him, trying to match Brandon's description of the surroundings with the roads they were driving, but something wasn't adding up. No matter where his parents drove, they couldn't find him. Brandon described passing gravel intersections, fields, farm entrances, but nothing matched the locations his parents were searching. The longer the call went on, the more confusing the situation became. Still, Brandon didn't sound afraid. At times, he even joked with his father. But then, something happened. As Brandon continued walking through the darkness, his father suddenly heard him react. 2 words, "Oh shit," and the line went silent. His father immediately began shouting into the phone, calling his name again and again, but there was no response. The call had ended, and Brandon never answered his phone. At first, his parents assumed the signal had simply dropped. Cell reception in rural areas can be unreliable, so they continued driving through the countryside hoping to find him. But Brandon never appeared. Eventually, they contacted the police. The next morning, search teams began looking for Brandon. Using the details from the phone call, investigators attempted to reconstruct his location. It didn't take long for them to find his car. The vehicle was still sitting in the ditch where Brandon had left it, but Brandon himself was nowhere to be found. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints leading away from the road, nothing that explained where he had gone. Search teams began combing the surrounding farmland. Volunteers joined the search effort. Farmers walked through their fields looking for any sign of Brandon. Helicopters scanned the farmland from above. Police dogs were brought in to track his scent. The dogs followed his scent along the road for a short distance, but then the trail simply stopped, as if Brandon had vanished. Investigators soon discovered something extremely important. Brandon was wrong about his location. He believed he was near the small town of Lind, but in reality, he had crashed nearly 25 miles away. This meant that during the entire call, Brandon and his parents were searching in completely different places. Both believed they were getting closer, but they were actually miles apart. And Brandon was walking through unfamiliar farmland in complete darkness. The area was filled with uneven terrain, drainage ditches, and small rivers. Without light, it would have been very easy to miss a sudden drop in the ground. Some investigators believe Brandon may have accidentally fallen into one of the drainage channels hidden in the fields. Others believe he may have slipped into the nearby Yellow Medicine River, but despite extensive searches, no evidence of that was ever found. No clothing, no phone, no personal belongings. Nothing. Over the years, many theories have attempted to explain Brandon Swanson's disappearance. Some believe he may have become disoriented while walking through the farmland. Perhaps he wandered farther away than anyone expected. Others believe he may have been injured somewhere that search teams never discovered. But there are also darker possibilities. Some investigators have questioned whether Brandon may have encountered someone else that night, a passing driver, someone who noticed a lone young man walking along a rural road in the middle of the night. But there has never been any evidence of foul play. No witnesses, no suspects, no leads. More than 15 years later, Brandon Swanson is still missing. His disappearance remains one of the most haunting mysteries in Minnesota. There are no answers, only one final moment. A young man walking alone through the darkness, talking with his father on the phone, trying to find his way home. And then, two final words, "Oh shit," followed by silence. And a mystery that remains unsolved to this day.